Everyone remembers the day when Jeffrey Epstein slipped back into custody in July 2019, not as the social lion who hobnobbed with princes and presidents, but as a defendant charged with sex trafficking of minors. What followed was a cascade of revelations that read like a ledger of privilege, secrecy, and institutional failures. To understand why Epstein's arrest detonated public outrage, you have to rewind to the early 2000s. Epstein cultivated a life of extremes: a Wall Street pedigree, a Manhattan townhouse, a private island in the U.S. Virgin Islands, a New Mexico ranch, and a fleet of aircraft. He presented himself as a philanthropist and a fixer, surrounded by well-known scientists, politicians, and celebrities. Beneath that facade, victims would later say, was a pattern of recruitment, grooming, and systematic sexual exploitation of underage girls, often arranged through young women who worked for him. Local police in Palm Beach began investigating in 2005 after parents and victims reported encounters with Epstein. The investigation uncovered dozens of alleged victims. But what should have become a federal reckoning in 2008 collapsed into a controversial plea deal negotiated by federal and state prosecutors in Florida. Epstein pleaded guilty to state charges of procuring a minor for prostitution, served 13 months in a county jail with unusually lenient work release privileges, and avoided federal prosecution. The non-prosecution agreement not only spared Epstein significant jail time, it also included gag provisions and, crucially, shielded potential co-conspirators and limited the ability of victims to pursue federal civil claims. That deal became the first layer of the conspiracy, not a shadowy cabal, but an institutional covering: prosecutors, defense lawyers, and a system that privileged wealth and negotiated victim silence. For many victims and observers, the question was not merely whether Epstein committed crimes, but why the instruments of justice proved so pliant. The story reopened in 2019 when journalists and new federal prosecutors in New York pursued fresh evidence. Arrested in July, Epstein was held at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Manhattan on charges of sex trafficking and conspiracy. As the case moved toward trial, the stakes rose, and so did the spotlight on Epstein's network. Names of powerful acquaintances surfaced in flight logs and visitor records. Victims testified about high-profile guests at properties where abuse occurred. Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's close associate, was arrested in 2020 and later convicted in 2021 for her role in recruiting and grooming underage girls, a conviction that validated many victims' accounts and revealed how trafficking was organized. Then, on August 10, 2019, Epstein was found dead in his cell. The official ruling was suicide by hanging, but the circumstances raised immediate alarms. Cameras outside his cell had malfunctioned or were inconclusive. 2 guards assigned to check on him were asleep and later falsified logs. Routine checks were not performed. A private pathologist hired by Epstein's brother disputed the suicide ruling, pointing to neck injuries he argued were more consistent with homicidal strangulation. The fractured sequence of events, prosecutorial concessions, powerful friends, a mysterious death in custody, congealed into a broader, darker narrative for the public that Epstein operated within a protective ecosystem and that, even at the end, the system failed to provide transparent accountability. Investigations followed. The Department of Justice's Inspector General probed the circumstances of the 2008 plea and later the jail failures. Civil lawsuits by survivors pressed the estate for settlements and disclosures. Maxwell's conviction became the clearest judicial confirmation of the trafficking scheme's architecture: recruiters, enablers, and a steady stream of young victims groomed into abuse. Yet Epstein's death meant the criminal trial that might have named additional conspirators never happened, leaving unresolved questions and fueling speculation. This is a story about more than one man's depravity. It is about how wealth bends institutions, how silence can be bought, and how victims' voices collided with bureaucratic and legal choices that delayed justice. The record is partial but damning. Prosecutors' choices in 2008, the scale of the abuse uncovered by investigators, Maxwell's conviction, and the chaotic custodial death in 2019 together map a conspiracy not of a single secretive plot, but of social, legal, and institutional failures that let a criminal enterprise flourish for years.